going live now, and we will invite Zoe to come up and share her knowledge with you. So, nice round of applause.
So hi, I'm Zoe, and I'll be talking to you about getting into a green job and green degrees with kind of a more regulation background of the green jobs. So just a bit of background, I did my GCSEs at Surbiton High. I then moved on to Cranley School to do my A-levels, which were in biology, chemistry, English literature and UPQ. I then took a year out where I focused mainly on gaining more knowledge and experience in the sustainability sector, and then moved on to Newcastle University where I did marine biology for 3 years, where I graduated this past summer. So as for how I found my degree, I basically knew that I wanted to kind of combine biological sciences and sustainability. And I really loved everything to do with the ocean, so I kind of basically just did a simple Google search and found that a degree that was perfect for me. But I think it's really important to have that conversation with yourself, because there are so many degrees out there, like environmental law, sustainable architecture, sustainable agriculture, that you just would never know existed. And it's important also to check. I know you've probably all applied for universities anyway, but it's important to check because every university has different versions of the course. So I know at Southampton it focused mainly on oceanography, which is not something I wanted to do. But at Newcastle it focused more on the biology side of the ocean, and that really interested me, so that's what led me to Newcastle. So as for my past jobs and work experience, as you can see, I don't have a lot of experience in sustainability and the environment sector. And I put non-relevant in quote marks because no experience you gain is not relevant for a green industry. All of these experiences I brought up in all of my job interviews. I only applied for green jobs, and all of these provide you with competencies that you can take into every job that you go for. But then moving on to my more relevant work experience. So over my gap year, I went to the Seychelles to do a conservation internship for 2 months with GVI. So this involved surveys on turtles and juvenile lemon sharks, but also multiple beach cleans around all the islands in the Seychelles, and a lot of community outreach, letting the people know kind of how to conserve these species and how to best protect their islands against climate change. Because islands are some of the most vulnerable places to the climate crisis. And then I also had a 1-week placement with the Marine Management Organisation, which is a government organisation that protects the UK waters. And I got this through my degree, so again, it's important to know what you really want, because you can gain really important and relevant work experience. And this kind of took me on to more of the regulation side, which is where I am today. Which is the Environment Agency. So the Environment Agency is a non-departmental government body, and they work in national teams and area teams all across the country. I think we have over 12,000 employees now across the country, working in anything from massive nuclear power plants right down to conserving individual lakes and rivers across the UK. The kind of general vibe of the Environment Agency is to protect and improve the environment, and adapt to climate change and reduce its impacts by regulating everything environmental. So I sit in the Science and Training Graduate Scheme, which is a 4-year graduate scheme. I started in September, so I've been there for about 6 weeks. And there are about 40 other graduates on my scheme, and it basically included a set of competency questions. And then I went on to an interview with a panel, and then I got offered the job. And these graduates sit in about 30 different teams across the Environment Agency, so there's a really broad array of jobs that you can apply for, even as a graduate. So my job specifically is Installations Permitting Officer, and I sit in a national team. So what this entails is applicants of large corporations and businesses input applications to the Environment Agency, and basically what they want to do is cause some sort of level of environmental harm, kind of because they have to, because that's how the businesses work. So like mass factories, will produce a certain amount of emissions, will produce a certain amount of odour, noise, dust, and we basically go and review all of these that the applicant puts in, and then we either give them the permit based on whether we think that their environmental harm is all right, or whether we think it's going to be too much. And then this then allows us to regulate each site and allows the area teams to go and complete compliance sites, which means that we know that they're conforming to the environmental best available techniques at the time. So these are some other roles at the Environment Agency that I've included just to kind of show you the broad array of what the Environment Agency do. So you can be anything from kind of radioactive substance officer, environmental crime officer, flood and risk officer, and right down to graduate scheme. So this is just for the Environment Agency as well. This isn't including all of the hundreds of other green sectors and hundreds of other green jobs that you probably don't even know exist, but there is a really specific job out there that will be best suited to you. So I definitely suggest you go and explore those. So some rewards and challenges of my job. I've also tried to apply these more to the green jobs in general. But a pretty obvious one is doing something that directly influences the environment. In my job particularly, you can actually see the physical positive effect that you're having on the environment. When I receive these permits, I can kind of see that I have been able to lower the emission per site and I have been able to benefit the environment in that way. Also working in a novel sector, I know climate change is not necessarily a new concept, but there are constantly emerging new climate projections, constantly emerging new projects like artificially engineered coral reefs, for example, that are coming out to combat the climate crisis. And it will be completely different, all the guidance will be completely different when you will go and hopefully apply for green jobs. And then some challenges. So this one's quite broad, but coming into a brand new role that is not similar to anything you've done in the past, it is really quite different, more than you'd expect, than education. And the learning curve's quite steep, but that's what I would say about a green job. If you are truly passionate about a green job, the learning curve is more enjoyable and is less steep. And finding a balance between protecting the environment and not infringing too much on operations. So kind of the connection between the environment and societies and economies is really interlinked, and you need both to kind of run in parallel in order for there to be improvement on the climate crisis. So it's really important to kind of acknowledge that you can't just stop emissions completely, but also acknowledge that there is something that you can be doing to reduce them. And so a bit of background information on how climate change impacts my role. So I've decided to talk about instant roles. So all Environment Agency employees are urged to undertake an instant role, which is basically on the level of first responders, so on the level of ambulance, firefighters, police officers, but in response to the climate crisis. So the Environment Agency gets called out alongside their day job. We then just kind of have to drop everything and go and respond to these emergencies. For example, mass fish kills, mass pollution events, oil spills, waste crime, which is really prevalent at the moment, and most recently Storm Babette, which I think flooded over 100,000 homes, and the Environment Agency were behind the scenes working on that. So we do everything from kind of comforting the people who've lost their homes, right down to working on the front line to kind of sort out the problem of where this flood water will go and fix all the damage that we can. And this is really beneficial because it means you have the ability to kind of work your day job, you sit behind your desk and you get to kind of see that aspect of it, but you can also go out into the field and kind of see firsthand what happens and the increasing prevalence of climate events that are happening. Instant roles are becoming more and more important to the Environment Agency, which means that we're having more and more climate related events that we have to then go and respond to. So I've just included some tips that I think are helpful for getting into a green career. So I'd say start early and take every opportunity. I kind of started looking around the industry throughout university, and then kind of started looking at applying for jobs at the beginning of third year, just because I know a lot of my friends made the mistake of kind of going into it too late, and then kind of not getting the opportunities. But sometimes you kind of start early and start thinking about what you want to do. That's been really helpful for me, and then also just take every opportunity you can. It's really useful to be able to gain experience, especially in the sustainability sector, because jobs are becoming more and more competitive as everyone wants to go into them, but also there's so many more jobs out there to do with green industry, because we're kind of at that cusp of if we're going to save the planet or not. And then follow your passion. I think one piece of feedback I got from my interview was that they could tell that I was genuinely passionate about the environment, and I think that's quite specific to having a green job, because I think passion gets you quite far in the green industry, not as much as kind of other industries. Be open-minded. I would have loved to go back to the Seychelles and kind of work with turtles the rest of my life, but I think when I saw this permitting officer agency job, I thought I may as well apply for it and try. I ended up getting it, and now I really love it, so I think it's really important that to stay open-minded, especially because the green industry is so broad in what you can do. And also get excited. Everyone always says it's the future, and it's really oversaid, but it really is. It's such a great time to be getting involved in everything environmental and sustainable, and yeah. Thank you.